Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Aston Williams coming to you live again with another amazing episode of the Melanated Travelers Podcast. I have an amazing guest in the building. I have John Montgomery, aka John MMM2. Just a little bit about John, man, before we get started. First and foremost, brother, I'm a fan before anything. I really love the direction of your content. And before we even dive into your bio, I think you're one of those individuals that not only promote solo travel but also promote travel with your parents, man. And that's something that's new. It's something that's a different vibe on the show. Not knocking any other melanated alum, but you're not saying that they don't like their parents, but you definitely promote it, man, and I really do respect that. So just to give y'all a quick bio on John, man. He's a travel influencer and content creator. He's been traveling roughly what since 2008. Since 2008, you've been making multiple trips.
Um, 2007, really.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
2007, he's been making multiple trips, whether that be for business or for personal. And just based on his travels, people have built a good trust with him. And see him as a good resource for information on destinations, for traveling gear, for lodging information, so on and so forth. And something that I'm very happy to say, man. This brother has visited over 50 countries, and not only has he visited over 50 countries, he's visited over 20 countries with his parents. That's why I wanted to highlight the parent piece, because I think that's key into what we're going to be diving into the episode. So he works sales for a German chemical company. He's a proud member of Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. Shout out to the Divine Nine. Like I told you, off outside of the studio, I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity. So, brother, I already know. We align on that part. So I know you the type
For
of brother
sure.
that's willing to put in the work, man. So he's also a part of the American Council on Germany Young Leaders. And I think you got that one in 2009. You've been a part of that since 2009.
Yeah.
Oh, 19. I'm sorry, 19.
Yeah. It's
And he's
yeah.
also part of the Executive Leader Council, ELC Institute Fellow. And something that I definitely want to dive into this episode, brother. You an advanced scuba diver, so you diving deep with some shit that we don't see underwater. So hey, we're gonna talk about that. So, brother, I just wanted to give you the bio that's due to you, man. Brother, welcome to the show. I'm really happy and excited to have you on, man. Well,
Thank you. I appreciate that. Great introduction. Happy to be here and looking forward to this chat.
definitely, man. So I always start off with this. I always start off with the mindset, right? The mindset of a traveler, right? Like what's your why, and what made you want to say, you know what, I want to start explore other places. I'm tired of seeing these things in books. I'm tired of going to geography class in elementary, middle, and high school and seeing all these locations. I want to see them for myself. What gave you that want to, and that why, and that drive to say, you know what, I want to explore other areas of the world?
Yeah, man. It goes back to when I was very young. I was into like the James Bond movies, Indiana Jones. I played Tomb Raider games growing up, Carmen San Diego, watched the Discovery Channel, National Geographic. Like I was always into that sense of exploration, and I was curious. Uh, I grew up in Florida, North Florida, right outside of Jacksonville, and it's very different in terms of um, very flat. Like just from a nature standpoint, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like South Florida where you have the Everglades. There's not like any huge monuments. So I was always interested in nature, wildlife, different cultures growing up. And for me, like it really started changing significantly when my parents, we first went abroad when I was in high school, crossing the Atlantic to Europe. We took I think it was about 2 weeks trip where we started off in London, went to Paris, Austria, Switzerland, uh, Amsterdam, um, which was a little bit weird going to Amsterdam with your parents in high school. Um, but it really like kicked off. This is something that I'm very much interested in doing and wanting to explore further. And then in, like you said, 2007, 2008, we took another family trip to Cancun, went to Chichen Itza, my first wonder of the world, and then ever since I've just been going. I've really prioritized travel and wanting to see the world, wanting to, like you said, like learn more that's not covered in the social studies class or geography books, and getting more of the background that's not covered in school, right? So every year I've made it a priority of going overseas, many times, multiple times a year, to different places.
Perfect, perfect. Well, you know what? I'm gonna take this time out to get a shout out to your parents, man, because I think being in the African diaspora, man, a lot of people, especially me being from New Orleans, and I think you can have some stories like this too. Growing up in Florida, and then where you're at right now on the East Coast, is the fact that a lot of families, are not privileged, man, to have those opportunities to go outside their bounds. And I still know a lot of people that haven't been as further. The furthest they've been is Texas, and the furthest east they've been is Mississippi, man. And it's not a knock. It's just to raise awareness to let people know that man, I definitely want to just take the time out to commend your parents, man, to give you, they took you out the country young, man, so you can open up your mind. And travel exposes a lot to you. The culture, the experience. That's absolutely amazing. So I just want to take the time out to give the shout out to your peeps, man, for sure.
Yeah, I'm very grateful, because we were fortunate enough to take multiple trips abroad. But I just mentioned the Europe one because that was the biggest one we took when I was growing up before I graduated high school. But my mother's side's Jamaican, so I've been to Jamaica a few times for family reunions. But we didn't like explore that much. Like we went to Dunn's River Falls, but it was mostly going to families' houses in Kingston Hills. And we took a cruise to the Bahamas before, when I was younger, so even before the Europe trip. So I'm grateful that I've had these experiences growing up, and it really helped shape my mindset. And I think it's extremely important, um, to highlight that. And yeah, like you said, I'm so grateful for those opportunities when I was younger.
Believe it or not, I've never been. Even though I'm from New Orleans, man, I've never been to Mexico yet, man. I've never been. Like, I no nothing against Mexico. Let me just say this: nothing against Mexico. It's
Yeah,
other places I want to, touch. Eventually, I'm gonna get there because I want to see the Chichen Itza.
yeah.
Eventually I'm gonna get there. But man, how was that experience, man? Just seeing the first wonder. I've seen that you also been to Brazil and Jordan, so I would assume you've seen those world wonders as well, man. So, how did you feel about that one? Do you feel like out of all of them, that one is a little bit overrated? Me personally, I don't think so, because when it
Which
comes
one?
to,
It's Anita?
yeah, just the architecture, and a lot of people have mixed reviews about it.
I can understand it. Like if you were to make a list and ask me, so I've been to what, five out of the seven, not counting the Great Pyramids, five of the seven new wonders of the world. Chichen Itza is not at the top of my list, but it still holds a very special place in my heart because that was the first one. And that was the only one, I think, yeah, the only one that I've seen with my parents and my sister. So it does hold a very special place in my heart. And I did learn more about the Mayan culture and background. In general, Mexico is a top location for me. Not like I went to Cancun twice, but it's more than that. So I've been to Mexico City for work. I've been to Puerto Vallarta, Cabo. There's lots of beautiful places in Mexico. It's still on my list for diving though, because I've heard like great things about Mexico being a top dive destination, but I haven't had the opportunity to go yet. And I think I've only traveled to Mexico once since I've been certified. So, um, yeah, it's high on my list to go back to.
Bro, I gotta ask you. Since you brought it up again, I gotta ask you. I
Yeah.
gotta ask you, what influenced you to want to scuba dive, brother?
So the story behind that is I think in 2007. So my parents had a conference in Hawaii. Again, fortunate to travel. So I had like just graduated college, and they had never been to Hawaii, but they made it a family trip. So my sister was in had to go to camp. I have a younger sister, so she had to go to camp. My parents were in the conference, so I was like left alone to kind of just explore Hawaii. And I was walking the streets and I saw a guy advertise scuba diving and that I could do it fairly quickly. Um, so I said, what the hell, I'll try it. And we went to this hotel pool, which at the time I didn't know if he was really affiliated with the hotel. It seemed like a very quick, somewhat bootleg process. But the skills that I did in the pool were fine. Like I had no issues with it. And we went straight out to the ocean, and it was literally life changing. I was so in awe of being in the ocean, breathing underwater. It felt like I was in a huge aquarium and just seeing the wildlife in their natural space. Like it's not an aquarium. This is actually the ocean, and I'm able to breathe and just explore. And it's extremely peaceful. It's a combination of you're not able to really hear anything, but it's the closest thing to being in space because that feeling of weightlessness. And you're just like gliding and just seeing everything. And it was amazing. And I was hooked ever since then. The challenge was when I came back to the US, like I immediately, not US, but Florida, but I immediately started my scuba certification. But one of the rules of diving is you can't dive while you're sick. So I was getting over a cold. I was a little congested. And when I started the process, the skills training in the pool, I started having some issues equalizing in my ear. So I started going to like an ENT, getting it checked out. And I was concerned because I experienced like a lot of pain from the pressure going down. And it wasn't until 2020, like the ENT didn't find anything, like I was cleared, but it wasn't until 2020 I went to Aruba, like I wanted to escape the US during the election at the time. So
I don't blame you, brother. I'm going somewhere too in September. Don't
I
worry.
wasn't sure what was going to happen. So I got out of Dodge, went to Aruba, and I saw like a lot of places advertising scuba diving again. So I said, what the hell, I'll try it again. And I was fine. Like I didn't have any issues. And I was so excited that I could restart this process. So I ended up going to Panama in 2021, got certified, did my open water, which is like the first level of certification. And then I went on to do my advanced certification, which is you're certified for over 100 feet. And now, like almost every vacation I take, there's a dive aspect uh, to it. So I try to include it or look for places. It's either centered around diving or I try to just add it to my trip.
Look, look. I don't want to be biased, brother, but Deep Blue Sea,
Yeah,
Jaws, brother. We never make it out these movies, brother. We never make it. So my question is because I see people, and actually just to let you know, this is live, so people can they drop in chats right now. The people
okay.
want to know what happens when you see these big shadows and you don't know what it is. Do you get nervous? Do you get I mean, from a distance, I'm talking like these. You see these big shadows, you don't know what it is, but you
Yeah.
down there. You in the environment. You already said it. Like, how do you mentally get through? Like, bro,
So, great
Jesus.
question. I've never had an experience where I saw something far in a distance and it was a shadow and I couldn't see it and I didn't know what it was. Usually when you're diving, like there's different levels of visibility depending on where you are. So an
Mhm.
example, Barbados is very clear. You might be able to see 30, 50, almost 100 feet. Same thing with the Red Sea near Jordan, very clear water. So there's not like, oh, something's just running up on you. But I've had a couple experiences where I was surprised, but it was never like a shark. I had a eagle ray, which is very similar to a stingray, but it was
Mm.
very large in Puerto Rico. Um, come up on me very quick. But I thought it was cool. Like I was fascinated because I've never seen an eagle ray that size. Like it was probably 7 or 8 feet. Um, and I know eagle rays are not dangerous really. So I was fascinated to see that and so close. Like I wish I had good footage of it, but it happened so fast. Like it shocked me. And to get more comfortable with the experience, so my first time really diving around sharks was in Dubai. So I went to the Dubai Aquarium, and you can dive there. And it's a huge tank inside the Dubai Mall. They have lots of different kinds of sharks. So that I intentionally went there first to get that experience, that feeling, learn a little bit more about sharks, how they have very poor vision, how it's important to not be underneath them when you're exhaling and blowing bubbles because that sensation under their stomach like makes them want to investigate. Uh, but that was a way for me to build and increase my comfort level around sharks. So I did that before I went to Indonesia for the first time to scuba dive, and yeah, it was fine. Like I've seen sharks in the distance, um, not like a great white or a tiger shark yet, but I've seen some sharks in the distance. It was fine. A lot of white tip, black tip sharks. But the biggest thing that I've seen and that I love seeing are manta rays, and they're huge. They can get close to 20 feet, um, and they're not dangerous. Like they don't have the stinger at the end like stingrays.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, they're huge animals that I know like I don't have any issues seeing them. I actually like went to Indonesia specifically so I can see manta rays.
Wow. Yeah. Nah, I mean, it's not a knock because I'm the type of person I'll swim. I'll just free swim in the ocean with no vessel on. I mean, I like to feel free. So one of my favorite destinations is Colombia. That's one of my favorite countries. Just got back from there. We talked about it outside the studio. Just
Yeah,
got back from there and took did a different tour this time. So I took the top five island tour. For those that know Spanish, Isla tour. It was absolutely amazing. Went to Bora Bora and did some free swimming in the ocean. But hey, it's similar, because I'm diving in
yeah,
there. I don't know what's in there, so it's the same. Speaking of the Red Sea, unfortunately, they did have somebody last year that a shark got him, man.
oh
Unfortunately,
man,
yeah, unfortunately, yeah, in the Red Sea. But man, let's shift gears for a second. So you
yeah,
you brought up a few countries.
yeah,
Um, for sure. Let's dive into Jordan, man. How was that experience? And that's the first question. And then the second question would be, out of all the countries you've been to, like, what are some of your ways to immerse yourself in the culture? How do you, besides scuba diving, how do you get yourself engraved in the culture so you can, feel the local culture, the local vibe? Or are you more so of a when you travel? Do you go to more so the touristic spots, or you like to get a mixture? What's your vibe? What's your vibe when you travel?
great question. I'll answer the Jordan part first. It's one of my favorite trips. Um, I was planning, so I went there for my birthday a few years ago with my dad, uh, wanting to recreate the Indiana Jones movie, The Last Crusade. That's where the site of the Holy Grail was Petra. So my dad and I dressed up like Indiana Jones and his dad, and I was there for my birthday. But what was cool, really cool, leading up to that experience was we went to Ghana for his birthday I think it was a year prior, and then we went to Egypt, Italy before connecting back. And I think from Ghana to Egypt, we connected in Dubai, and we met some people from Jordan. uh, my dad's very social on planes. I'm not that social on planes, but my dad is. He made a great connection, and we stayed in contact with them after the trip. And I mentioned like I'm really interested in going to Jordan. It's on my list. So I reached out to them when I finalized the trip and I was on my way there. And when we arrived in Amman, we got in late, but they still like so it was a woman and her brother. They took us to their house. We ate like the traditional Jordanian food. We had a great time, man. It was totally unexpected. Um, where like we had been traveling all day. We got in probably 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then we went to their house and we stayed up till maybe 5, just talking and like catching up a little bit. And it felt like it was a very welcoming experience and getting some tips from them as well. So that was like our first experience going into Jordan. So it just started off the trip very well. From Amman, then we spent a little bit of time in Amman, and then we got a driver and went to Wadi Rum. I might be mixing that up. We might have went to Petra first, and then Wadi Rum, which is like glamping in the desert. It's supposed to be a great place where you can stargaze, but also some of the movies like The Martian, Star Wars were filmed in the Wadi Rum area. Dune was also filmed there. So that was like an amazing experience as well to see like a place that feels like Mars, literally. Like I had on a
Oh,
space suit. Like I have some cool shots of that. My dad did it too. He put on the helmet and the spacesuit, but it feels like you're on a different planet completely. Uh, then from there, we went to Aqaba, which is in the south, to the Red Sea, and that's where I went scuba diving. I was also interested in Jordan for a diving location because the king of Jordan likes to dive, so he purposely sank military equipment. So it's the first underwater military museum in the world. So there's tanks, there's helicopters, there's anti-aircraft um, weapons down there, like jeeps. There's all types of stuff that's a little over 25 meters, so like over 75 feet, close to 100 feet, where you can see this. So you need to be an advanced scuba diver to actually see those things. And then we went up to the Dead Sea. Um, so that was also a very cool experience. You can very easily float because the water is so salty.
mm-hmm.
Before we came back to Oman, so that was one of my favorite trips because of like the personal, the community type experience that we had on the front end. It was something that I've always grew up dreaming about, going to Petra and seeing that it's a much larger site than just the traditional monastery or the treasury that you see. There's a larger site in the back, and there's some other ruins there. Um, Diving in the Red Sea, my first time, Wadi Rum, and the Dead Sea. So it was an awesome experience. I think your next question was like, how do I like do I do culture or tourist things? Was that
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, what's your vibe, dude? Because some people go to all the, and nothing against it. Some people
yeah.
go to all the touristic spots, and that's it. It's never down the the unbeaten path is what I call it.
Yeah, so it depends on the location for me. Like going to Jordan and not going to Petra was not an option for me.
Mm.
So it varies depending on the location. And I'm also the type of traveler where I will go to the same place multiple times. So I will experience a different side, something that's more local or more off the beaten path if I'm there a second or third time. So I've been to Ghana a few times. Um, I didn't do all the touristy things the first time around because that was my first time being in Africa, and I have connections there. One of my frat brothers has lived there for over the last 10 years. One of my dad's best friends from college, he's Ghanaian, he lives there. So we went off the beaten path. Like we did more of what they do, um, in addition to more of the touristy things. So it really depends.
Speaking of Ghana, I actually got a homeboy. He just purchased the condo in Ghana, man. So Ghana is up and coming right now, man. It's up and coming. You know, you know what? Since you brought it up, describe that feeling of you know being from the diaspora, and especially for me, growing up in the South and multiple plantations, and sugarcane. Obviously, the primary commodity was sugarcane. Not necessarily knowing where I'm from, right? But I know I'm from somewhere. But that feeling that you got when you arrived to Africa, more specifically Ghana, for the first time as your first African country. How did it feel, man? What was the feeling of just stepping foot there and like I'm home? I'm not the minority here. I'm the majority.
Yeah, you said it. I'm home. People that I had never, I haven't met so many of these people before. Like at the hotel, um, connecting with either my dad's friends or just being out at a restaurant talking to people, and just people saying welcome home was so a combination of touching, refreshing, um, moving. Um, it was deep, man. Being on the continent for the first time. So I went in 2019 during the year of the return. It was very special. Um, but personally, for that reason, I also did not go to Cape Coast Castle my first time. I did not want to experience that. I felt like it would have been a little too much for me, and I wanted like my first experience to really be uplifting the entire time. Um, yeah, it was extremely welcoming and refreshing. Um, Being there, connecting with friends. I My dad's friend that I met, I didn't realize when my dad put me in contact with him that they were best friends in college, but they hadn't seen each other um, since they were in college. So before I was
Oh
born.
wow, wow.
Yeah, so it was over 35 years when they had last saw each other. But again, welcomed me to his home, broke bread several times. Like I had dinner, I had lunch, connected me with his friends, um, like met his whole family, um, offered to come and stay at his home whenever I'm in Ghana. Uh, it was such a different experience. Like even going to the mall and seeing like you only see black people on ads there. That's so different, man. Like going billboards, signs, TV, it's nothing but black people. Um, it was very refreshing, and there's this aspect of never worried about safety, like I have here in the U.S. many times. Like that
Hmm.
was never a question while I was in Ghana.
Come to the night water. I'm gonna see if you feel safe.
Well, that's what I mean. Like in the U.S., I'm in New Jersey. I grew up in near Jacksonville. I've been in a lot of places where it's different, man. Or even in Southwest Florida, where my mom is concerned about me going for a run by myself for
Yeah,
my own
it's
safety,
crazy.
right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and that's not an issue at all being in Africa.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
Wow. That's absolutely amazing, man. So what? Because you've been over 50. You've been over
yeah,
50, and like, what's some of your travel hacks? What's some of the uh? Are you dedicated to a specific airline? What are certain apps that you use to try to find good deals? Are you more
yeah,
so of a person to say, you know what, this is where I'm going this year, no matter the price, I'm gonna map it out, I'm gonna plan it out. This is where I'm going this year. Or are you more so of a person that just goes to the Explorer page on Google and say, you know what, ooh, that's a good deal. I'm gonna go here. What's
yeah.
what's your what's your strategy? What's your travel hacking style?
Yeah, travel hacking, the foundation is mostly travel credit cards. So I put everything on my travel credit cards. I sign up for the sign up bonuses and use them, whether that be for hotels or for flights. Uh, that's been the foundation for the last like 15 plus years of my traveling. It's been the travel credit cards. Your question about airline loyalty. So yes, I've primarily been loyal to Delta over the years. Another travel hack is if you are in a role where you're able to travel, that helps significantly. And I had a focus on international business for my MBA, so I was like very intentional about trying to find a role in the business space that allowed me to explore. So that's also how I've been hacking as well, business extending business trips, or you being able to take advantage of airline miles and hotel points when I travel for work has also been key. So a combination of those things has been huge for me over the years. Um, One thing that I also find it important of why I like staying with an airline or a particular hotel brand as much as I can has been the benefits of having status at those particular airlines or hotels. It's getting more difficult now because they keep raising what the requirements are.
Yeah.
But historically, what I've seen is I I was traveling for work and I had maybe 3 or 4 trips over the period of 3 weeks. Like I was flying all different places, and I mixed up going to Detroit and Dallas. So for those of you that may not know, the only difference is DTW and DFW. So I booked a trip going to Dallas instead of Detroit, and I didn't realize that until I got to the airport. And Delta changed it for me, put me on the next flight, uh, and didn't charge me anything.
Mhm.
There was no change fee. There was no like, hey, difference of fare. Like they just put me on the next flight to Detroit, even though like I made the mistake. Um, I've also been really late to the point where the door was shut when I got to the gate. And when I got there, I was running, tired, breathing heavy, and the gate agent like asked me for my name, asked me for my boarding pass. I said it was shut, but then they saw my status and they're like, "Hey, we have a platinum member here," and literally opened the door and let me on the plane. So I've seen like different things that has led me to want to become or stay loyal for different airlines or different hotels for that reason. You also like get more points the higher your status is. Like so, it depends. Then your question about, hey, where do I go? I use Google Flights a lot. Sometimes I use Kayak, or I'll check different sites for their particular deals, like Points Guide, things like that. And when it comes to, do I just pick or do I like let the deal determine? It that also depends as well. Um, if there's like a major thing going on, I went to the World Cup before. Like I was not looking for a deal. Like I was just trying to go to the World Cup. So I just booked what was available. Or if it's my birthday, usually like that's where I don't really um, care that much. But other times, like I will look for deals and see like, hey, what's the best travel deal, and then I'll take it and I'll just go. So I've been to Honduras for that reason. I went to Barbados on a deal that I happened to see. Um, I took a solo trip to Barbados to dive, but I was just kind of looking at, hey, where's a good dive location that has a deal? Barbados worked out. I was interested in going, so I went.
Gotcha. What's some of your, like you've been to so many different places. So what's some of the most interesting things that you've ever eaten or tried, man? Because you done been to some places, man. And some things that
Yeah,
probably shocked you, and then once you asked what it was, and they told you, it was like, huh. It don't taste that bad.
Oh man, that's a tough one. So the first time I feel like I ate something that wasn't what you would traditionally eat, I guess here in the US, I think I had like chocolate covered ants in a salad in Mexico City. So this was maybe 2009, 2010. Um, so that was interesting. But Philippines and Thailand were the places where I had some of the street food, where you see like lots of various different
Mhm.
insects, um, and or chicken blood in the Philippines was the street food that I had. Um,
Wait, hold on,
chicken.
brother. You're not gonna skip that. You're not gonna skip that.
Yeah,
Hold
it
on,
was
time
a
out. Chicken blood?
man. I wish I could show you. It was. I had a tour guide. We did a street food Airbnb excursion thing. We went around some bars and then we went to some street food locations. And I there was this one vendor that we went to, and we were just like grabbing different things that she thought I should try. And one included there was chicken blood. It was like I can't. It was hard to even tell what kind of consistency. It wasn't fried. It wasn't like it didn't look like chicken blood, basically. Um, but then there were intestines from, I think, chickens and pigs. Um, man, yeah, there were liver. I think it was chicken liver too. And I don't remember what the other thing was, but the chicken blood was the most probably unique um, food that I had, in addition to the insects in like Thailand. It had a locust in Thailand.
All right, locust. Yeah, I had locust before. It's not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I had locust before. So what, man? Like, so like you been to like what would you say since we talking about food? What has been like? I guess you could say your top three, and it might be hard because you've been
For
to so many.
food, for food, man, I'm mother side is Jamaican, so I'm biased. I feel like I need to put that in a different category because I'm biased. But outside of that, um, oh, sushi in Tokyo, man,
Come
by
on,
far the best sushi I've ever had was in Tokyo.
wow,
Um, After that, I would say, yeah, the I had some pasta in Milan that was the best that I ever had. So I spent some time in Italy, but Milan specifically was the place I felt like had the best food. Um, and there's a dish in Brazil, um, feijoada. Feijoada is a traditional Brazilian dish that's a mix of different meats. I think there's rice, there's plantains. It's made a little bit differently depending on where you are in Brazil, whether that's Sao Paulo or Rio. But that was also an amazing dish that I had. Don't like have it in the airport. Like go to a
Mhm.
restaurant. It's usually served on a certain day, depending on the city. So in Sao Paulo, that might be like Wednesdays and Sundays. In Rio, it might be Saturdays and Thursdays. But feijoada in Brazil, that was amazing. That was an amazing meal.
you got you. I think just out of all your experience of traveling throughout the years, like what because a lot of people don't ask this enough, right? What have you
Yeah.
learned like throughout your travels and explorations and why do you still want to do it? Why do you still want to go to those unbeaten paths? Like what's the drive, man?
There's a lot of different reasons. Like when you travel solo or with family. So I'll start with solo. Like solo travel, you learn a lot about yourself. Um, when you travel solo. Like everything's on you, but there's also like this sense of peace that you have from planning, but you gotta really
Mm-hmm.
integrate as much as possible or connect with people. It's like a completely different experience being in a new place for the first time by yourself. You don't know anyone, you're kind of figuring things out on the fly. Um, and it's an opportunity to meet new people, have new experiences, and you hold that within yourself. Um, with family, why I enjoy that a lot, specifically with my parents. I love traveling with my sister as well. Um, it's a unique experience seeing something from their perspective for the first time, and seeing like that childlike wonder that as a child, seeing that through your parents, you never really see, right? If you're a parent yourself, you would see that with your own children. But I've never seen my parents light up like that and laugh and experience that kind of joy, seeing something for the first time. So I love it, experiencing that with them. For me, like there's a lot that I learned through, um, like tours and different cultural experiences. So, for example, I went to Paraguay before, and a lot of their culture, was impacted because of war with Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and so many of the men being killed through this war. So the women in Paraguay are very strong in, uh, their culture, but that's something like that particular war and how many people died, the size of how Paraguay used to be a much larger country, before the war, is something that I never learned about in school. Right? So uh, traveling gives me an opportunity to learn more about a place that I didn't I didn't know about before, but also see like how much beauty exists, elsewhere that's outside of the U.S. Um, I think there's so much to see in the US, but there's also so much to see elsewhere. There's so much beauty in some of these places. And what I feel is important to highlight is there's some like magazines or books will talk about like the top 100 places to see before you die, or 100 most beautiful destinations, and a lot of them tend to be in the US,
Mm-hmm.
or there's not as many that are highlighted specifically in, South America or Africa. And I had a National Geographic magazine, and in the top 100 places, I was shocked that Brazil was not a single place in Brazil was listed, and that's one of my favorite places that I've been. And there was very few, listed in Africa, and there's so many beautiful places, to see, and so many different cultures. And Africa is more than just nature and wildlife. When I tell people that I'm going to Africa or I've been there, um, people have asked me just this past week, is it for nature and wildlife or is it for other reasons? And most of my trips to Africa have not been for nature or wildlife at all. Like I'm very much interested in doing a safari and going gorilla trekking and doing these things, but that was not my primary reason of going there for the first time. There's so much to see and learn, about the people there. It's not just about, South Africa, even though it's a beautiful place, or
Mm-hmm.
Egypt. There's so much more to Africa than these places, and it's not a place of just complete poverty or famine or disease. Like that does exist in certain places, but it's so much more than that. And I felt that it was important for me to see and understand that myself. And also, I'm opening the eyes of my parents, my dad, my mom, who's been to Africa many times herself. She's been to Rwanda, Botswana, on her own, and understanding as a over 6-year-old woman, she felt safe. She's made connections there. She wants to go back and she feels comfortable. I think these types of experiences are important to share and for people to know about. In addition to, like, there's other beautiful places as well that I just love to see and love to experience. Like New Year's Eve in Ghana is, that is a time. Uh, Such a vibe. It was a movie out there, like having a great time in Ghana and knowing that Accra is a New Year's Eve destination. Um, that's just an example.
Wow, that's awesome. And last question I want to
Yeah.
give you, man, is if you had to give advice to somebody that's on the fence, that's here in America, that parents haven't traveled, um they come from, rather that be backgrounds are good, backgrounds are bad, but also is the fact that they're on the fence, they're looking to get their passport, they're looking to want to take that next step. What's some advice that you can give that person to get them to take that leap?
To get them to take the leap to go explore and to travel.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a good question. First, like I would say, why not? There's so much of the world to see. Why not do it? And it's also good to like see something for yourself. Like you hear people talk about these things. Like it's important to see and know for yourself, um, instead of like just being what you hear from other people or being in your bubble of whatever city or state that may be. There's so many different things that you can learn, how people do things differently in another place. Yeah, I highly encourage people to go out and travel, and from different food to different festivals. Um, there's not many parties like a carnival party in Trinidad. Um, like, yeah, you can go into Miami, but like carnival in Trinidad is man, that's the mecca right there. Um, I've had some of the best experiences I've ever had, like just meeting people, like the Jordan connection that I met. I am still friends with those people to this day. We
Hmm.
still catch up, and they'll wish my dad and myself well. We'll check in, and I'll never forget that. But like that doesn't necessarily need to just be international travel. Like I went to Yellowstone with my sister this year, and it was one of the most beautiful drives and scenery and nature ever. Um, and that's here in the U.S. Like I think there's a lot that can open your eyes to just the beauty of the world if you go out and yeah, explore. Highly recommend place national parks. Yellowstone is amazing. I'd go back there in a heartbeat. Um, and doing the tourist things at the whether we just had the Olympics, Paris, like Eiffel Tower. Yeah, it's a cool thing to see, but also go to some other places that you may not have heard of as much. I think will open your eyes to all the various cool things um, that you can learn about, see, experience from um, a different culture and different country.
Definitely. Definitely, brother. Well, brother, you already know I appreciate you for coming on. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll make sure that I have his information down in the description for the show notes. I'll make sure y'all can reach out to him. But man, I'm also give you this time to go in on and blast out everything you want to blast out, man. How can people follow you? How can people support you with everything that you're doing, man?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram, John MM2. That's M for Michael, MM2. I also website is the same, johnmm2.com. So I post or I have some inspiration locations there. You can find out where I stayed in some of these locations. What are some top things to do in those locations as well. And then I would encourage people, if you're curious about diving, please hit me up. I'm always like pushing that diving piece as well. So yeah, I appreciate you letting me say that as well. Thank you.
Oh no, man. I appreciate you, and just like I told you offline in the studio, man, you family.
Yeah,
I really do appreciate you for coming on, and I hope, guys, that y'all can take out, if a person can take out at least one thing that John said today, take that and just roll with it. Like you said, why not, right? Because he dropped so many gems in this episode. But if y'all could just take one thing that he said today and go out there and just go out there and explore, man, because at the end of the day, the most valuable thing that we have is time. And no matter how short our time is, how long our time is, we have the opportunity to go see the world, while our eyes are wide open, while we're fresh, while we're young or old, right? Or seasoned. Let me correct that. No old. Seasoned
season. Yeah,
individuals. Seasoned individuals. Because we getting up there too. So, but no, man, I really appreciate you coming on. And like always, y'all know my motto. I'll see you at the top because the bottom is just too crowded. Peace.
thanks.